Evening, everyone. Declaration of opening for tonight's forum meeting is made at 5:30 p.m. Just a reminder before I start, tonight is a forum, it's a question and answer, so councillors and members of the public have a chance to participate and ask questions of the officers, so we can be informed when we make decisions on every item at next week's Wednesday ordinary council meeting. A little bit off track, but firstly, we're going to acknowledge the passing of former councillor John Proud. So council acknowledges with sadness the passing and surprise of former councillor John Proud, who passed away on the 9th of March 2026. John served the Shire of Northam as an elected council member from 2015 to 2019 and served with about half of the councillors around the table, if not more. During this time, he contributed to an important period of growth and development for the Shire, supporting initiatives that helped to shape Northam's future, including the planning of the Northam Aquatic Facility, the construction of Billiard Court Butcher Centre, and a period of significant private sector investment and development within the district. John was well known locally through his role as editor of the Avon Valley Advocate. In that position, John worked to represent and promote the communities of the Avon Valley. With a professional background in the official reporting of parliamentary debates and in managing regional newspapers, John approached his work with a strong sense of responsibility to public discourse and community representation. Reflecting on his time on council, John noted that Northam had long been regarded as being on the verge of something significant, and he took pride in being part of a council that helped the Shire move beyond that point during a period of major development led by both government and the private sector. John also served the community through the Anglican parish, including the role of warden. On behalf of the council and the community of Northam and other communities who've reached out and contacted me, we acknowledge John's service and contribution to our Shire and extend our sincere condolences to his family, friends, and everyone who knew him. John's commitment to the Northam community will be remembered with appreciation. Thank you, John. Item number 2 is opening procedures. 2.1 is acknowledgement of country. So the Shire of Northam acknowledges a continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, and embraces the vast Aboriginal cultural diversity throughout Australia. On the land of the Ballardong Noongar and Whadjuk Noongar people where we meet, we acknowledge and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Item 2.2 is recording of council meetings. Members of council and member of the gallery are advised that this meeting is being live streamed and audio recorded and made available on the Shire of Northam's YouTube channel. If members of the public would like to have access to the recording of this meeting, they can do so via the Shire of Northam website, and I have done that. So item 3 is attendance. So we have the councillors, and as my standard, I'll go from left to right to welcome all councillors. So welcome Councillor Williams, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Mencelli, President Antonio, Councillor Gira, Councillor Ryan and Councillor Biglan. All the councillors that are scheduled to be here, and welcoming the staff, the Chief Executive Officer, Ms Terralink, Executive Manager Engineering Services, Mr Devsich, Manager Planning and Environment, Mr Farnworth, Executive Manager Corporate Services, Mr Streets, Manager Finance, Ms White, Manager Governance and Risk, Ms McCall, Governance and Risk Officer, Ms Blase. Got all the officers here. Item 3.2, apologies, is nil. And item 3.3 is approved leave of absence. I will deal with the one that's reflecting tonight, which is Councillor Poulton has been granted the leave of absence from 15 March 2026 to 27 March 2026 inclusive. Item 3.4, absent is nil. So we now go to page 8, which is item 4, which is disclosure of interest. I do have some. So we have item 13.3.1, proposed scheme amendment 24 Alcabella Lodge. 721, which is 3349 Great Eastern Highway, Wundowie. President Antonio, that's myself, has declared impartiality. The planning consultant mentioned in the report was known to President Antonio. So all the disclosures I have are relating to the same item, which is 13.3.1. Councillor Mencheli has declared impartiality. The planning consultant, Cobus Newbold, is known to Councillor Mencheli and is a former Northern Shire employee. Councillor Williams, 13.3.1, same item. The planning consultant, Cobus Newbold, if I say it correctly, is known to Councillor Williams as a former Shire of Northern employee. Councillor Hughes, Cobus Newbold, the planning consultant, is known to Councillor Hughes, same item. And councillors are well aware that as an item comes up, they are still able to do a declaration. All these are impartial, so councillors will take part in any question and answers on that. So we go to page 9, that's item number 5, announcements by the presiding member, that's without discussion, so I'll take that as read. And then we go to page 12. So we have public questions. Yep. So I'll read these out because they'll provide it to us. So we have a question from Ms. Cunningham. Item is water reuse program and started at 239 Nilgarn Ave. So the summary of the question 1. On the 6th of February 2026, the Shire provided an update that scheme water would be used to offset deficits in the availability of recycled wastewater for irrigation of public areas around Northam. Which specific parks, gardens, school and sports ovals and other areas will now be irrigated with scheme water? Response to question 1. The scheme water used to offset the deficit was only used on Henry Street, Oval Northam. Summary of question 2. Has the Shire's wastewater reuse program been operating under a permit from the Chief Health Officer to use recycled wastewater from the Northern Water Resource Recovery Facility for irrigation of school ovals and other public areas? Response to question 2. The Shire of Northam operates the Northam and Wundowie recycled water schemes under approvals issued by the Department of Health for use on various open space areas. Summary of question 3. Previous reporting and monitoring of outflows and inflows to the Northern Wastewater Treatment Facility showed that use of recycled water for irrigation over summer is required to prevent the Shire's wastewater pond overflowing into the Avon River by the overland discharge area. How will the risk of overflows be managed now that less recycled water is being used for irrigation? Response to question 3. The Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant, or Northern Water Resource Recovery Facility, is operated under a licence issued by DWER and to the Water Corporation. The management of the facility in accordance with the licence is the responsibility of the Water Corporation as the licence holder. Summary of question 4. A Shire update from April 2025 regarding Northam's wastewater treatment facility stated that the facility requires critical upgrades to ensure functionality and allow for future expansion, including the upgrading of pumps and chlorination systems. However, additional funding was stated as needed to make this possible. Are there any updates on if funding has been sourced to upgrade recycled wastewater sanitation and pump systems to ensure any of this water used for irrigation is safe and compliant with healthy WA standards? Response to question 4. It is understood that the Water Corporation is proposing to undertake major upgrades to the Northern Water Resource Recovery Facility. Further detail on this project would need to be sought from Water Corporation. The Shire is seeking funding to assist with upgrades to its infrastructure to support the distribution of the reused water. All water that comes through the treatment plant to the Shire system is compliant as per relevant standards. Summary of question 5. The Shire of Northam advertised its intention to dispose of Block 881, 239 Nilgarn Ave via public treaty to Procon Developments Australia Proprietary Limited on 5 September 2018 for $805,000 ex-GST. However, some contract amendments occurred prior to the sale. On what date did this sale occur and for what price was the property sold? Response to question 5. The change of ownership occurred 31st January 2019 for the sale price of $805,000. This information can be found through Landgate. So item number 7, we're on page 13. Oh, yeah, so there's no questions. Yeah. Sorry, and I've neglected to go to the members of the gallery to see if there was any public questions. So, for members of the gallery, just to remind you, we've got 3 sections, but 3 sections not because of what's happening, but we've got 2 sections when you can participate. That's public questions or deputations, which is where we're going to do it. So just so every member of the public is aware of that. So, and I will advise you what to do when we get up there. So to that item. So item number 7 is response to previous public questions taken on notice. For the camera, both members of the public said no, they're not going to ask questions. Item number 7 is response to previous public questions taken on notice. That is nil. Item number 8 is receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. 8.1 petitions is nil. 8.2 is presentations. If you note in the agenda, it does have, we're going to have a presentation, but we're going to do that at the ordinary council meeting next week. So it'll stay in the agenda. And 8.3 is deputations. We do have a deputation. So I'm going to invite our esteemed guest up, and I forgot to say, can you please come up to here, put the microphone on, and just state your name so everyone can hear.
Hi, my name is Lauren Lavery. I am representing Week Up Natural Resource Management, which is an environmental nonprofit here in Northam. I've passed out some little photos to support the presentation that I'm doing. I didn't want to put anything on PowerPoint. I'd just rather have you listen to my beautiful voice. So I am I wear many hats at work. I wear many hats in the community. You'll recognize me from the Northam Toy Library as well. But I've recently taken on the project management of the Aboriginal NRM team. So I look after the contract for the Noongar Rangers, NDR. And we have had a contract with the Shire of Northam to maintain the cemetery. We first worked with the cemetery in 2016 down at Burlong Pool. I think there might even be a photo, there was a photo at one point. After that, we were contracted with the Shire of Northam in 2017, 2018, and our contract is ending in 2026. That's when it's going up again. We hope to apply again. But I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you and show you what has been doing and how it's affected our organization, how it's impacted the community. So the other thing that's happening is we're, because the Shire of Northam has hired us to do work at the cemetery, we've been able to grow our ranger from a casual seasonal workforce of about 4 Aboriginal Rangers to 4 permanent part-time Rangers and 10 casuals. So we've got quite the workforce going out doing seed collecting, cultural burns, all sorts of activities out in the whole wheat belt, and the Shire of Northam has been a contributing factor to make that a success. We are looking at what we're doing in the next chapter of the Ranger program. We've hired a consultant who's come in to give us some recommendations, talk to our team, see what's going well. And one of our Rangers had this to say. I'm going to read it out to you. This is from Alfred Stack. Alfred Stack was born in Northam. When he was 18, he had started a painting apprenticeship and worked as a painter for 38 years. He lived mostly in Bunbury, where he had his family. He never thought he would come back to Northam to live. He did come back, and for family reasons. When he got back, he rang Boma, who was our Aboriginal Ranger coordinator, and a week later, he started work with the Ranger team, and that was a couple years ago. I thought I would never come back here to live, but when I got to work with the boys in Sea Country, everything changed. He could see the chance to build on something, to help to build the Ranger team. Now his son is also a part of the team. Alfred is 58 now and works full-time with the Rangers. He looks out for the younger guys, but he doesn't want to be called a crew leader. I just want the young guys to step up, he said. They help each other out and learn as they go. Some days it's seed collection, other days it's fee-for-service work. The variety suits him. I'm always happy every morning, you know? Alfred remembers being taken out bush to special places when he was a kid. He's getting to see those places again. He plans to keep going till I can't walk or get out of bed. Life's too short. His mom and dad and lots of other relatives are buried in the Northam Cemetery. The Rangers have a contract looking after the cemetery, so he can visit them while he's out working, and that matters to him. The Rangers program has given Alfred more than just a job. It means being outside instead of breathing paint fumes. It means watching his son and other young people find their way. It means families reconnecting. After years of being away, now Northam feels like home again. I don't want to leave now. I'm not going anywhere. And Jermaine Davis, who couldn't be here tonight, he wanted to pass on that the cemetery builds so much confidence and self-esteem just by working up there. People acknowledging them and giving positive feedback to the team is the best reward, as sometimes the Rangers and Aboriginal people don't always have a great response or feedback in Northam. Being part of the community, being in my different roles in human development, that sense of community and belonging is essential to having a successful a life where you feel like you're part of something. And the Shire of Northam has provided that to a whole group of people. We've had about over 58 Rangers come through our program since it started 2 years ago. And I wanted to just extend, like, things can be really dark and the news is awful and the world feels like it's headed towards despair. So I wanted to come and just bring a little bit of light that what the work that you're doing as council members, as staff, as ratepayers, is making a difference here in Northam, and you're providing that sense of belonging. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's brilliant to hear the good news story. It's good to hear the deputation that's very positive. And I was saying to Ms. Lavery that it's actually good because I've been today attending an Aboriginal engagement forum run by Walga. So it's very timely that you're making this deputation to us today. So thank you, and extend our thanks to the, especially to the members who've taken the time to provide statements.
Thank you.
And I forgot to say to members of the public, you're quite welcome to stay or go. So we will have hospitality afterwards if you'd like to stay, and if you do stay, we'll probably get a photo as well. But you can go or stay without reference to me at any stage. And I just want to check there's no more deputations? No? That's good, thank you very much. So we now go to page 15. So item number 9 is applications for leave of absence. We've just got a recommendation there that we'll deal with next week. So is there any questions on that? No?
Sorry, Mr. President, I might just clarify, in the background it actually says from the 3rd of April to the 23rd of April. I can confirm it's actually the 13th to the 23rd of April, so we'll have that corrected for next week.
Yep. So I was just going by the recommendation of the
Pick that up.
That's good. That was a question you were going to ask. So thank you. No other questions, councillors? No, so then we're still on the same page. Then we've got item number 10, still on page 15, confirmation of minutes. So 10.1 is confirmation of minutes from the ordinary council meeting held 25th of February. Councillor Williams?
Can I just request that for next week, the minutes are changed, it's just in the index in the agenda item for 13.3.3. It still says recording instead of recoding for Mitchell Avenue. That could just be changed to recoding, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions? Queries? No? And it's Councillor Williams will make sure, we'll have to make sure that it is changed for next week. Then we've got item number 10.2, which is notes from the council forum meeting. That's being held tonight. So that'll be a new item next week. So we'll have question and answers on that then. Then we've got item number 11, items brought for the convenience of those in the public gallery. I'm not aware of any, but we should be able to get through the council meeting fairly expediently anyway. So item number 12 is reports of committee meetings. So then we go to page 16. So we have minutes from the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on the 17th of February 2026. We have both minutes to receive and adoption recommendations. I was going to check to see if there's any queries or clarifications on this. No. So that's that one. So then we go to page 46. So item 13 is officer reports. 13.1 is the CEO's office. 13.1.1 is sector consultation, electoral reform discussion paper. The author of this report is Ms. McCall. Is there anything you'd like to say to us, or?
So essentially, it's another protocol in relation to the election. So essentially, the Walker is seeking feedback from council by the 27th of March on the introduction of the full spill election cycle and the introduction of compulsory voting. So council previously considered this, I think in 2023 off the top of my head, where it indicated that its practice was to retain a 2-yearly cycle with a half spill at each election and voluntary voting. So this proposal is essentially to maintain that position. Yes, one of the key differences, or one of the questions put from Wales was if local governments were required to transition to a 4-yearly election cycle, what would council's preference be in that scenario? So we've suggested that if that were to occur, it would be, well, we've recommended a compulsory voting methodology, just because if you're essentially, you're at more risk of having a complete council, or like a whole new council set with 4 years, which potentially would only be elected by a minority of the residents of the community, which is 30%. So if you've got highly engaged groups or individuals, you're essentially setting the voice of the council for the next 4 years. And then it also aligns with national consistency if we were required to go to a 4-year cycle, but our preference is certainly maintain two and voluntary voting. It's, I guess, difficult to make an informed decision in some regards. There's no financial data to support us in making that decision around how much it's actually going to cost us if we were to have 4-yearly elections. There may be cost savings, however, there would be increased costs for each election cycle because you would need to have more staff on, more votes to be counted, that sort of thing. So based on, I think it was Tasmania, they had a 35% cost increase per election by 4 yearly. So again, without solid cost modelling provided by the WAEC, we don't have that. So we've sort of formed this based on the best of our knowledge and ability.
Thank you. Questions? Yep, Councillor Wright.
Is this just going to be a sort of rubber stamp job? What was the sort of position in terms of testing the waters of just the landscape? It's going to be like, oh yeah, we've heard you, and then we're just going to do it anyway.
It's difficult to say, I guess, that will ultimately be the minister's decision, but at this point in time, Walga is seeking a council-led response, so they want to understand from a council perspective what the general feeling of the sector is, and then they will develop a position, I believe, from the feedback that they get from the councils in regard to full spill and elections and compulsory voting. It would be difficult for me to say whether the decision's already been made or not.
Oh no, it depends what their general feeling.
So the previous,
The Deputy President may be able to perhaps respond, I'm not
the
sure.
previous position of the sector was the 2 and 2 and voluntary. So unless there's been a significant movement across the sector, it's possible that will still be the position then forward as part of the proposal to the state government. So
Follow-up question. So, Walga is aware that one of the rationales behind it 2 and 2 is for continuity.
yes,
That's one of the big considerations for this
So that-
council, at least. Yeah. Assuming for other councils also, but definitely this council.
so we've included that in the proposed response, that one of the main reasons is for that continuity of council. It provides council to ensure mentoring. So if you have new council on, you've got council who have at least 2 years experience already who can provide mentoring for councillors. It obviously reduces staff resources in terms of having to induct potentially a whole new council. Even though there is the data with the other states shows that even if you went to a full spill cycle, council, or if their trend is that they're seeing around 50% of returning council, but there's no guarantee. You've got no structure to actually. Yeah, exactly. So there is that risk. There is the data to show that it has, has got that trend, but
Councillor Bigney, then Councillor Williams.
This, I think I was around when this was discussed previously. Have we considered, or was it considered doing 2 and 2 with compulsory voting? Would we not consider that to try and get more votes?
We can, as a council, we can consider that.
it would significantly increase the cost of the process. I believe it was considered in my head, but at the time, the view of the position of going to a voluntary, which has been a strong voice of the sector in the past years.
We can still provide feedback, saying the council can decide 2 and 2 and compulsory as their recommendation. That's
Absolutely.
Just a follow-up question. If we did consider mandatory voting, wouldn't it help potentially dissipate the debates around that they don't get enough to say about what happens in the community? Well, they're not having to vote. It's easy for them to say, well, I'm not partaking or whatever, but forcing them to vote might make them, I don't know, just as a thought.
I'm probably going to answer that saying that that's a good point to make in the debate next week. I'll answer that. Councillor Williams.
I couldn't see it in there, I just missed it on its report, right? But they're a longer one. It's extraordinary elections. Currently, if somebody resigns and it's close enough to the next election, they just don't fill that void. What will happen if you've got a 4-year gap? Is it likely there will be more extraordinary elections, or will the government allow longer terms to go within those?
There's no parameters around that at the moment. That is actually one of the considerations that we've asked them to consider through this proposal. Basically, they, said what would you require, what information would you require, and one of them is some updates to the legislation around what will happen with extraordinary election processes. It's possible that there could be more elections, but it really depends on the framework that they set, which is unclear at the moment.
Question. Okay, Councillor Menchel, then Councillor Burek.
Yeah, look, I'd like to know what the cost of the council election is. The last one was held in October last year. We had about a 30% turnout, and I think our cost was somewhere in the order of about 50,000.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head it was about 56,000.
56,000. Okay, so if we go to full mandatory elections, it's going to cost us about 3 times that, roughly.
I think.
Well, we don't know, but and I've picked up on Councillor Williams's comment in relation to the extraordinary stuff, because that'll be an impost as well. And then the people that don't vote, it'll create a whole lot of angst for the WAEC in terms of chasing up all those recalcitrant people that didn't vote.
Yeah, that's also another consideration we've put in the response as well.
Oh,
There's
okay.
that administrative burden of being responsible for enforcing or the compliance action around it. So there's certainly a lot of extra administrative processes surrounding that.
And just before I get Councillor Burek, Walga's trying to engage with the WAEC about the resourcing and that sort of point.
Well, their record, if I can say it, their track record hasn't been that good, has it?
You can ask that as a question. How I'll say I don't know.
I think from memory back, I don't think it eventuated to anything, but I thought they were in the 2023 discussion paper, they were trying to get them to do an audit, an independent audit of the election processes and the costing and that sort of stuff. I'm not sure if it ever eventuated to anything. Something like that.
It's been pointed at the W.
Yeah, I thought it might have been something that Wow would have advocating for or something.
Councillor Burek.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councillor Menchur asked the question.
I'm sorry, it's totally
That's I got the response, but I'm just wondering if it would be possible just to provide a rough estimate, like I'm not expecting.
Of the cost?
But of the cost of, a rough estimate of the cost.
I think the officers admit it's very, very rubbery. If the officers said that Tasmania, their experience was another third, and ours is 50,000, so if you just say it's another third, that's another 18,000.
I guess you would have savings though, because you're not running elections every 2 years. If it was the 4 years and compulsory voting, you would actually only be running the election every 4 years, not every 2 years. But you would potentially, because it would be compulsory voting, probably a better comparison would be the year that we had done the popularly elected president, because that required the distribution of ballot papers to the whole of the Shire. So that may be a better comparison in terms of cost, but yes, it's hard to say.
The figure I would be most comfortable with is using Tasmania's example when they transitioned to this process and they had a 35% increase their election. So there's a bit of administrative resource you would need on election day, and I think, you know, the postage, yes, you could consider the previous election cost for that, but yeah, it is difficult.
So just to clarify, that 35% increase was on the top of the 2 elections what they had before.
Of an election, so and that was based on Tasmania.
So that an election was.
About 75,000 based on Tasmania's results per 4-yearly cycle rather than
2,000. So it is potentially actually a saving, because you're only doing the election every 4 years.
35% was on the top of the 2-yearly election. Or so it's the same. It's not an increase.
But again, in defence of the officers, that the very rubbery, so it's hard to determine.
And that's why we have referenced in the discussion paper that it's difficult because we don't have solid data.
Councillor Hughes.
Do you think there's a possibility the costs for candidates will go up because they're going to have to compete or try and get the message to a lot of people that really want to vote? Because over East they have probably voting and everything, but in there it's political, they have political parties, so they've got money behind them, a little bit more than you're going to have here. So I just wondered if the cost is going to go up for independent candidates.
I'd say it's up to each individual candidate, because I came across 2 examples today. One who ran as a Shire president, his profile was, I'm not going to campaign, and he still got voted as a Shire president, and it was a council very similar to ours. And another one, a bigger council, where a losing mayoral candidate spent $80,000. So that gives you the range. You've got 0 for a council the same size as now, and $80,000 for someone who's unsuccessful. So it's up to the candidate. It really is. And and without going, if you're clever with electronic, it doesn't cost you too much. That's right. Yeah. Councillor Girac.
So just another question would, if that's the case, that it's becoming so competitive, and especially financially, would that actually disadvantage a lot of people to actually nominate, and we've got candidates as is?
You don't have to.
Yeah, I understand it, but
if
then.
you do it electronically, you don't have
I
to.
understand that, but then, some people might not so good electronically, and then they consider the cost and it should be disqualified.
That can be part of our consideration of our decision we'll make it next week. Which way we
So
go.
it would be an equal share.
Sorry,
No, I was going to say exactly that. I mean, if councillors members are supportive of that, we can include that as part of our response.
So further questions to councillors? Just hope the whole sector comes out with a big answer. 13.1.1. So then we go to page 67. So item 13.2 is engineering services. Mr. Dempsey, you're lucky because there's no items you don't have to come up. So then we've got 13.3, development of community services, 13.3.1, you go into the last part of that, while I'm reading this out. Proposed scheme amendment 24 LWLO 27721, which is 3349 Gladstone Highway 1 Downlink. Just a reminder that President Antonio, Councillor Mincelli, Councillor Williams and Councillor Hughes all declared impartiality interest in this item. And we're just going to request a briefing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So what I'm just handing out is a supplementary that Adam and I discussed today, which will help what's actually in front of you technically. It's a practice that I always do a scheme amendment. I've started doing that with the first scheme amendment I put forward, where I'll do a forensic review and I'll mark up new text in blue and delete text in red with a stripe through it, and no change text in grey. So it's sort of in that vein of what we try to do in terms of making sure that you're completely clear, forensically, of each and every change you have in a scheme. This, though, it's not just an example of what the text in and out looks like. This is where provided you with a comparison between two relevant zones. So this proposal tonight has come from the proponent, is to take the El Cabello Blanco resort version and rezone it from tourism zone. It's the only property in the department. It's the only property in the city, Christian Shop, that is in tourism zone, and it is an action of the local planning strategy to delete that zone, to take it and retire that zone altogether from the scheme and not use that zone going forward. So the local planning strategy explicitly makes a statement to change it to a special use zone, but it doesn't explain or elaborate on what that special use zone should be about. So the new owner has seen the potential of the site, and in the attachment, the scheme amendment report that's been prepared and submitted, that's sat with us a little while. And if you check further in the body of the report, you will see the original proposal the applicant put forward was, the consultant put forward was two sort of broad uses, and that being garden centre and light industry. So it took a while with the proponents, and I went out to the site and walked around it one afternoon and shared his vision and explained to us what he was trying to do. And consequently, I went away from that and I took the two relevant zones and put them side by side and just mapped what both zones you can do in each, right? Like a bag of mixed lollies, what you can do in both. And based on what he wanted to do and explain to me, the options and flexibility, I then created a last column where I blended those together for you, and that's the proposed permissibility. I'll need to explain to Councillor General, the little diagram we're doing more often now, where we show you where you're at the planning stage and what comes next. And you might notice this one's got a bifurcation that goes two ways. Now, the reason for that is, as this table explains, there is a set of permissibility, and this is how the text we've designed, the provisions, the rules, works. So if the proponent wanted to stage development, they wanted to make things start happening, for example, bringing back the motel, bringing back the accommodation, and just focus on that for the next 2-3 years, he could just proceed with making a development application, he makes some supplementary things, and we would deal with each thing he wants to do with the recycling or the reuse of his buildings, and the use to reach for it, to correct and reuse. It means each and everything he wants to do will require a development application, and it will have to be assessed. However, he may wish to, up front, come forward with a clear, coherent vision for the entire site. He shared a draft of that. I know it's not a good resolution. It's the best I can get from the moment. It's an attachment in your agenda, and you've got a precinct concept plan in there, which seeks to keep and retain the built form and the character and the heritage of the place, re-innovate, regenerate that, and make it, bring it back to life. And then also to flesh out and expand the surrounding land, and take up an opportunity where he's seeking to have, in his mind, really a clean tech showcase of the wheat belt. And I've kind of finally got it out there, that's what he really is looking to have. And a place, a meeting point where essentially the wheat belt meets in with the metro. And this is where we have potentially a great opportunity for people having short stay visits, simply to access the place, at the local, national or international scale, given the demand for the accommodation, but also be a business-focused accommodation. So if you were coming here to negotiate contracts or establish business-to-business relationship, you would come as far as Okabogo and you'd be able to stay, enjoy, meet and use conferencing facilities, etc. like that, and then launch from that location out to the relevant investment opportunities and the landscape. And he's got a very clear idea in his head of a lot of things he wants to do and accommodate on the site. And the element I'm getting towards is that I've encouraged him to see it as an opportunity to consolidate a vision for the whole site, so that if he comes forward, once he's ready with a local development plan, he can actually lay out all of what he really wants to do from the selection he has, and we put that forward as a coherent master plan, if you will. And the council would entertain that and advertise it. It would become the plan for the entire site. And moving forward, the advantage for him would mean he wouldn't need to make constant development applications each time as a staging right side. They're all the relevant users, not all of them, whichever one you wanted to control, could move to a P use or a permissible use and wouldn't need DAs anymore. So building permits and all that sort of stuff, but he wouldn't need to have to go through the process of justifying the use because it's already secret. That's what he would do over here or there. So that I'll go further and say is that what he's put forward, as I said, it's early days. There's a precinct plan. It's going to grow. His architect is working on that, and I also have to advise that what we've put forward with him, working with him, and attempting to take his vision into much more clear certainty. That's what we're trying to do, not just what it all like industry. It's very just give you certainty. There may be some trimming down of some of these uses as we go forward, and that would be from you, Council. That may be in response to the submissions received, and I would say also the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage may also wish to cut some of those things, but that's an area to start to build and work on. Make some notes. Are there any fundamental questions at that point?
There will be questions. I'll go Councillor Mintelli, then Councillor Gibbon, and then Councillor Williams. I remember the order.
Yes, if I may, through you, Mr. President. I noticed under art gallery it says it's a permitted use, yet over the page, exhibition centre, it's not permitted. What's the difference between the two? I'm just playing on semantics here.
No, and we totally invite you to do that, because once you get into this forensic level of questioning, you start then going into the more definitions, and then you try and map that across to what does that business kind of look like. So an art gallery to us, and from what we've discussed with him, is a fairly boutique, small scale thing. It wouldn't be an actual gallery style thing. An exhibition centre would be more aligned to commercial trade, display and that kind of activity. We would see the art gallery just really ticking along, almost like a retail shop kind of experience, whereas an exhibition centre would be a seasonal and or periodic and after hours and larger. So little subtle things like that. No one's wedded to the permissibility, it's a start.
Yeah. I'll go to Councillor Bigelow then. You reserve your right to go.
No further questions from me.
No, there might be questions.
I have a couple of questions, and it might be just my lack of understanding. So now that, because I did ask Mr. Hunt this morning for a map that we could actually see what his intent was.
Microphone.
Sorry, because it's difficult to ascertain what he's actually wanting to do on this vast site. But a couple of the questions is I note, has he purchased part of the golf course land?
Yes, he has.
Yes. Okay.
Correct, he's actually purchased, there's a square area that if you look at the current zoning, is not included in the tourism zone, and what he's done is he's essentially consolidated that side of the creek line and purchased that extra line.
That's great. I thought that was the case. So does that mean that the petrol station is only zoned as a current petrol station, and is the golf course only as a golf course under its special land uses?
Yes, correct. So the golf course is will remain a separate land pathway and a separate special use zone, and likewise the petrol station is limited very explicitly down to the tavern, I think, in the service station you've got there, and that's a very small boxed area. Yes.
Yes.
And Councillor Williams was just asking about the zoning of the service station as well. So that's a separate title. Just want to clarify that.
And it's special use zone too.
Special and not owned by the same owner.
No.
I just want to clarify. I think that's, yeah.
I gathered that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So would we not consider potentially the golf course and petrol station, putting them into the new proposed special use zone 14 in its entirety, as opposed to picking out a pocket and leaving the other two separately?
So if I'm excited by that question because the strategic planner, which I started as, is leaping at that point. That locality is not a designated town site, and yet Glendowie and the locality or the growing community around it has no harbour centre or activity point. So it would beg some consideration that designating that locality as some form of activity centre would make a lot of sense. So I've flagged that from servicing point. The second part is what you're describing is why don't we have a coherent, holistic sort of vision and plan and coherent bring that area together, which is quite disparate. Now it's starting to get a bit crowded, and that makes absolute orderly proper planning. This is a conversation starter, and it's a good question because that may not be the last bit of land that the proponent seeks to purchase. As things start to get more real and tangible, and as his supporters are seeing real potential and he's seeing this come to life, that itself, planning is a transformative process. The act of planning evolves the planning process. So things may move on, and what you're saying, he would probably receive encouragingly. He is in good terms with the adjoining golf course owner, so there may be more to say in that space.
Sorry, I have two more questions, and then
I'll have to follow up that one. That's all right. So does that, if that was to happen, does that change any of this application process now? If those proposed purchases, would that change anything?
I'm anticipating there's the marginal, so there could be some waxing waning, or waxing or waning. So, through my experience in this instance, the establishment of the proposition, the proposal, the site broadly as you see it, it does not need to be locked in at this stage. You could go through the ventilating of the proposal and put it out there into the community, the markets, you have to respond. As you move forward, minor adjustments to the boundary, not significantly large, but it's subjective, but minor adjustments to the boundary of the proposed special use zone and adjustments in the uses within that special use zone are absolutely entertainable and can be dealt with at conclusion stage, and indeed can even continue after with negotiations with the Commission.
Sorry, Councillor Bigland just did that. So still Councillor Bigland, then Councillor Williams, then Councillor Ryan.
Is it correct that while the documentation refers to adaptive reuse, there is no clear or enforceable commitment to retain the existing El Cabello buildings, and the proposed planning will allow for full redevelopment of the site?
That is correct, Councillor. You may wish to retain some conversation around that. I have not, the proponent has given me no indication that the intention is to just throw the property back onto the market, because it would have significant greater value if this concludes. And he has not said anything about bulldozing and starting again. Every single conversation I've had has been thoroughly focused on the retention of the built form. In his opinion, it's not a viable project unless he gets to use the current built form. And he believes that's a competitive advantage. The site's really well built and it's got good bones, in his words.
Okay. Sorry, I said one more, but that's
You
led
did
me to, I did, but that's just led to me another question. Is there any way within this proposal that we can ensure that bearing in mind there's so much history in that Elk Valley site that I think, and I stand to be corrected, but I think you'd have an uproar if we were to just bulldoze that whole precedent down and not keep some of the buildings like it is, at least the front part of it, whether they do something else. Is there something within this planning zoning that we can ensure that that stays?
I would be confident that as an officer we could, bring that to the awareness of the proponent. I've advised the proponent today and gave him a copy of the delegate. I'm doing right now. I invited him to be here next week and to share with him his passion for it and his vision for it, and to hear from you those concerns and issues that you take on board. That is sort of the qualitative answer. The quantitative answer I can give you is I have no problems with being able to craft certain instruments or provisions and inject them into the process to achieve what you're trying to do. Yeah.
I also note that the amendment refers to local development plan clause 4.3, which explicitly allows the requirement to be waived for under, without, that it doesn't have to come to council. Some of the things within it.
Yep.
Given the scale and flexibility of the proposed, why would we not expect the mandatory LDP to ensure a coordinated outcome for this site? Because they actually haven't told us exactly what they want to do. It's all these things that you've come up with.
Okay, so what an LDP looks like and what it needs to look like, which is fortunately has been codified. The local development plan is adopted, and it's about the power or strength of a pretty strong policy. Slightly short of a structured plan in its rigor, pretty damn close. What you would expect to see is a map that showing high fidelity, that's spatially accurate, the pattern layout of the uses, and within those portions of the site, you have the ability to specify with high degree of fidelity, high degree of specificity, or you can be gentle and sort of fairly flexible, and you can explicitly isolate parts and say this use can happen there and nowhere else, or these three things can happen here, etc. Generally speaking, in his mind, the land between the service station and the arena, the pavilion, he wants to see that as the more commercially side, and just take that space and really work with it. Garden centre, cafes, exhibition halls, local offices, building up that side, and then the other side that's the leading away from the town. He's seeing that meandering on the river. He's seeing that as more the accommodation hub, the accommodation side, and that the core of it is the current site, and that's the short-term accommodation, restaurants, cafes, bars, and things like that. The commercial tourism, stage residential.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Following on from Councillor Goodwin's question, the site isn't on any form of heritage list. So can the Shire then actually enforce retention without that?
Not in that mechanism. There'd be other ways that we could explore with the applicant on how we would, so it's a combination of carrot stick. There are things we can introduce that would encourage and would waive the loss of it. I I won't say no at this stage, but until we craft a specific instrument, and I get that that instrument is valid and lawful and enforceable in another case, I can't quite answer you there. There are other mechanisms we can explore with them through commitments, caveats, deeds, memorials. We can do some extra planning things that we put on the title. There's some bonding things we can do with them. There's a few things in that space.
And all the uses that have been listed seem that there's sort of a bit of a similar flow through them, except bulky goods showroom and caravan motor vehicle boat sale. They just seem to be incongruous with the rest of it. I'm wondering if that's seriously being entertained.
Yeah, okay. So you picked up on a good one. I'll touch the caravan park because I do. I challenge back a few of these things. I'm prepared to sort of go in bigger and see if we can refine. But I did ask that question about caravan park. He identified that there's actually a strategic shortage of caravan park. So that's we're talking about from a accommodation point of view. We're trying to provide, not necessarily, but when you're looking to provide short-term accommodation, short-stay tourism accommodation, you've got a range in the market. So you've got the premium end, and you've got mums and dads in the camping and caravan and in the business sector in that space too. Paul sees there's a strategically lack of caravan park opportunities between here and Wellington. So he's
Surely not, sorry, Councillor Williams and I may disagree on that with Bakers and Wandowie having RV parks, but anyway.
Caravan sales,
Yeah, the caravan sales component.
oh, caravan does it. Okay, so yeah. Oh, we can go on that one. So, but I'm just interested. He feels that there is a demand and an opportunity to provide additional caravanning opportunities in that location and shallows. The other thing I'll just inject quickly, and it makes sense to me when I discuss it with him, he cannot raise all the capital and do everything all at once. So a caravan site is a really low cost, low drag way to activate and get a revenue stream and to provide a service without having to put up high amounts of capital to do servicing, plumbing, stuff, earthworks, etc. So even if he did do something like caravan park, it might only be for a period of time until then he swapped that out and then came in with it. So I would encourage him to think about staging in his LDP, and that would give you then an idea of what that LDP would look like in 5 years, 10 years, and ultimately. With sales, I will probably suggest to you there's some ambit things in there, and that we work backwards.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, sorry, with the location plan now, just on the Landgate site. So when you said that he purchased additional land from golf course.
It's a reference to the golf course access road.
Right, is it on the right hand side of that?
So it's immediately on the right-hand side of the golf course access road, just before it bends to the left and crosses the creek.
That's right on the east of El Cabello, isn't it?
Yeah, so the petrol station is at one, the bottom right.
So it's still part of 339 on the line?
Yeah, that one is the petrol station, 3349 is what he's purchased.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what you're seeking to clarify, Councillor Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to know whether, that's the bit that he purchased. And it goes around the petrol station, doesn't it?
No, if you refer to the attachment, it's located on the attachment as that sort of a bluish rectangular area.
Are you talking about the one on page, page 83? Is that the one you're talking about? Mr. Barwood, is that one, page 83?
That's the scheme amending map. If it helps, I will point out that this is quite clear on that. You just go back to that.
Page 83?
Yeah. So this will actually illustrate the point for you. So the current special action tourism zone is denoted in blue. That is the correct colouring on the steam map. You can see this sort of indentation area here.
Yes.
You can see how that's fleshed out and widened here, so it's like a panhandle.
Oh,
So
yes.
he bought that space there, and he's flattened that off, and it follows the creek line anyway.
Yeah.
The large detention basin, which takes water from the Fraser Highway, it's on wood land, there's no intention to remove it, of course, down, it's a matter of body. Again, he has a vision to reclamate that and actually turn that into a water field with no changes to it. Other than that, activating it.
Councillor Bigler?
Sorry, is that the creek that you're talking about that runs at the back of the golf course and behind the El Caballo Resort at the moment? Is that a designated creek?
It is.
So he won't be able to touch.
No, so in the special use zone provision conditions, so now we're moving from a concept about the uses, which is what you may want to treat, but now let's look at the right-hand side, so what? So you can do these things, how well can you do them, how responsibly can you do them? So the condition side is where we've really gone and put a lot of attention into making a safe process. In there, you'll see I've specified you either do it each and every time you come in with a development application, or you do it comprehensively, you do it once as part of the LTP. But you'll see in there that I've specifically included a landscape plan and a landscape management plan. That's one of the key documents you'll have to come forward with. And it's also been complemented with the drainage and water management. And bring those two conversations together, he's been made very clear by me who walked the length of the creek that he would need to work to use that as a feature in his site and to reinforce its ecological value and no change or disruption to its hydrological drainage flooding value. Quite aware of all the issues. His intention is not to affect the creek. What he said to me is he'd like to deal with the weeds in it and fix it and then turn it into a visual feature.
So can I follow up with questions that Councillor Bingham and Councillor Williams asked? If there was a wish by council to put a preservation order, for want of a better term, on the facade, would that be dealt with at this stage or would that come later? So would the councillors need to go in and come up with rules about what they want to do before next week?
Excellent. No, we wouldn't need to have that solved. I would like to, I think we would like to, the council would like to put that in writing and we can bring that to Mr. Durham's attention. That's a key issue. It's not been anticipated because he hasn't given us any indication he wasn't going to retain the building, but he would quite like to pick that up. I'll encourage and get you feedback through the chain club that he's attending next week. You can put those specific questions to him, but regardless of whether or not he attends next week, I'll take it on board and we'll put it in writing to him that going forward, we'd like to explore some sort of, begin that conversation and explore what would be the instrument that wouldn't be too fettering, but at the same time would achieve or shape the effect you want.
So this stage it wouldn't.
No,
not necessarily the stage. That's right. That's right. Councillor Bigler?
Is it possible that the applicant could give us an indication of what he's supposedly wanting to do on this site? Because at the moment, if I'm reading it correctly, he has a large-scale project that he wants to undertake, and he's asking the councillors to approve special use zone 14 when we really don't know what his intention is on this area.
Other than the flavour I've given you and a broad concept of commercial tourism and short tail and that broad sort of explanation, I can't speak because my role is to actually act on your behalf to provide a solution that works for you. I'm not here to advocate, but and he is going to get on board a consultant to help work this through. So without speaking necessarily for the applicant, he is still exploring within the broad framework I described. He is probably going to what we describe as a bit lease-led. So based on what effectively falls into place, the framework he gets to work with and the ultimate list of things he can do, I think we'll start to enter very seriously into conversations with leaseholds and into subletting and other forms of commercial arrangement, and start to drop in place the ultimate selected group of things, harmonising those things and putting them in a curated way such that the whole site collectively becomes a destination, functions as a logical place together with those range of things and provide local service. That's the trick, bringing it all together. But to be honest with you, at this stage, it's still a little bit of spaghetti thrown at the wall.
Yeah. Councillor Kelly, can I follow up Councillor Miller's question? So when you talked about Mr. Farnworth about council has the decision to sort of do it all at once or come back and request a development application for everything that happens, is that one way to control Councillor Bigland's concern? So he has to come back to council?
Yeah, so at the moment, he has to come back to council. If he wishes to have if he doesn't wish to invest up front end load the planning and have a complete master plan straight away. If he wants to start now and say that get that hotel up and running, he could work with that right now. He's already got the fencing land. A lot of stuff he needs to do right now. And he's got, quite frankly, he can tell you now, Paul will say, I've got enough on my paper. He probably wants to realise, with the land purchase, he probably wants to realise some indication of commercial interest in the space between him and the service station. I think that will be the next thing on his agenda. Now, if he landed a tenant who was going to put in something, pretty good, a destination use that would be good, I'm thinking of a couple of uses in Perth, you might know, like Cheetah, etc., where it's a multi kind of thing, where it's a garden centre, but it's a garden centre with a cafe and lovely sort of pros to your couch. Trendy stuff. Come on, your British he might secure a tenant that would go there, and he would need to then make a development application. So if he wants to take little nibbles and build it slowly, he will need to come back each and every single time with an application of approval, and you would have the discretion to maintain that or to refuse that. You may want to escalate things that I've said as D, discretionary, to A, to advertise. You're welcome to tinker and work with that. You've got a good framework now to work with, as opposed to just lie to industry. You just optimally manage.
I've got Councillor Mantilla first, then Councillor Bigland.
Yeah, mine's just a question. He's got an association with the Limestone Brewing Company, so
yeah, the public.
Yeah, at Southern Cross Club Hotel. I know the pub well, but I don't know him, so I don't need to declare. But would that be his number one priority, to get the brewery established in the immediate vicinity?
He hasn't mentioned
It hasn't mentioned that at all.
Yeah, he certainly is quite excited about the licensed venue opportunities. There's two specific elements, and there's the big bar and then there's the winter bar, as he's calling it. So he's certainly excited about getting them up and running. And he has said to me that he's been pretty keen to not just have normal on tap, but there's a number of brewing. I think there's some whiskey, or is it a gin distillery in the local area?
Rome Distillery.
Yeah, so his statement to me was he'd reach out for, what he's looking at is, as he said, the showcasing of the best produce, and including liquors.
Councillor Bigland?
So the discretionary, does the staff not have, the planning department not already have the ability to make some discretionary calls on some of these without bringing it to council?
Under the current zoning and tourist zone, yeah.
Under the new proposed special zone, can they not still make their own discretionary decision without bringing it to council?
It's subject to the delegations.
So, yes.
I would say that through my executive manager, we exercise caution, the precautionary principle. If there's any doubt we probably would test it, but if we thought that, so ours under the scheme are that if the officers recommend you advertise it, we would say, regardless of it showing as a D class, we can bring it to you and we can say to council, we recommend this be treated as an AUs. And you could theoretically turn that back and say, no, so deal with it as a discretionary use. Or you could say, quite likely, we'll advertise and treat it as an AUs. That's you don't see that happen often because of testing the water and we act with diligence. But if you want to lock down some things and make sure they absolutely are, and some of the licensed stuff has to be advertised for liquor licensing anyway.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't hurt if you make some of those AUs.
So now's the time to make those suggestions.
Absolutely, I would start to assemble those things and I would start to share those with the applicant and advise him that we'd be adjusting. He knows that though, that we might be adjusting things up and down.
And I was just sort of following on, Councillor Briggs was probably a little bit off track, but this is where you wanted to potentially have control. So when would Councillor Briggs want to make recommendations before next Wednesday, to have it done by Friday? Is that sort of the timeline, so you've got time to prepare?
Oh, right, okay.
If we're going to do this now.
I hear what you're saying. So what to clarify, you have the authority right now. Okay, this is important, and we want to say it for a while. This is the moment statutorily that you have the most influence and power in the process. As the regulations exist today, planning thought regulations that exist today, and not the ones that have existed, and very much on muscle memory local government still working with from 2005, where a proponent comes to you and says, I wish to change the use of my land and zoning, and I wish you to initiate that amendment. You had the choice to do that or not do that. And then from then on, you had control as to whether or not you detained it, and you had final adoption. And then you effectively advised the minister you were not going to do it, or you wanted to do it. And usually the minister just did what you asked. Today, the language of the regulation is explicitly clear. You now are only having a recommendation. Anything that you initiate, from that point on, you are making recommendations to the DPLH, to talk to WMPC, to advise the minister. You lose control. You have influence, but you lose control of doing it or not doing it at initiation phase. So, to your point, going forward in all proposals, I would recommend that if you're not comfortable to initiate, then your best chance to influence that is before initiation. So you may wish to collectively come up with a proposal and push that back. As an officer, I would then deal with the opponent and advise them of the success or likely success of going forward. And that applicant would then go, oh, okay, I'm not that better to it and make adjustments. I can come back with a modified proposal that the applicant is comfortable to proceed with, and then you can entertain it from that point on. And the applicant themselves can make a submission through the advertising process as well. They can express an opinion about things as well. So that's managed through that process. But yeah, it's better to start with a tighter proposal and loosen as you feel more comfortable, than to go loose and then try and chase tightening back.
So just through chair, so if council members were of the mind to want to change the I, the P, the D and the A uses that are contained on page 74 of the recommendation, I guess the question is, are they able to do that as an amended recommendation for next week?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's what I should have asked.
That's
Thank you. And I think that's what Councillor Mickman was asking as well. Yeah. Thank you. We're all asking the same questions. Any further questions, councillors? No. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. It's probably the longest we've had an officer up here for a long time. So we'll make a decision on that next week. So we now go to page 138. I can invite the officers up, but I dare say there may not be any questions for 13.4.1 and 13.4.2, but there will be for 13.4.3, I'm sure. So I can invite the officers up if that's possible. So, and I'll just see if there's any questions on 13.4.1, it's accounts and statements of accounts, February 2026. Any questions on that, councillors? You're still able to send questions on this throughout the week anyway. Okay. Yeah, councillor Kelly.
I should have asked a question earlier in relation to the previous item, but in the recommendation, there's, instead of the word from, we've got form in a couple of situations. So if I can just have that agreed, that'd be great.
And just apparently for everyone, that was Mr. Palmer's recommendation.
Yeah, it was, it's got form and it should be form. In a couple of typos. Yep. So just minor stuff, sorry.
So, so we go back to 13.4.1. Any questions on that, councillors? No. And then we go to page 196. 196, which is 13.4.2, financial statements for the period ending 28th of February 2026. Any questions, councillors? Yep, councillor Mangelli.
Yeah, Mr. President, just going through the payments for February, there was a payment on page 168 for the Coates Road upgrade to Protec Asphalt of $900,424.25. And on page 208, in the there's commentary on Coates Road, and it says 25-26 year-to-date expenditure of 854,460. I'm just wondering why there's a difference in the expenditure. Is there GST or some other? Was there a credit applied at some stage?
Well, GST is applied to when you're doing the saving account, obviously the amount that we pay does generally have a GST component, but I'll have to have a look at that one specifically, if that's okay.
We can have it on notice.
That'd be
Any further questions on 13.4.2? No, so then we'll get to page 219. 13.4.3 budget review 2025-2026. Ms. White, is there anything you'd like to tell us about it before we ask questions?
Yeah.
Not the wrong way to ask questions. What would you like to tell us about it before we ask questions?
Alright, so obviously every year we do have to do a budget review process under the Act and following regulations. So what we did for this particular one is we drew the line in the sand as of the 31st of December. We think, I suppose, a little bit differently. So it was a particularly thorough look at everything, and we actually engaged each of the individual officers to go, okay, right, where are we sitting at the moment? Where are we likely to sit? Are there any things that sort of are sitting up at the moment? Have we got any things that originally we were going to have as like an employee project, so they were going to go out and do the roadworks themselves, and then now it's become, you know, that's our materials, so where are the hours going, what are the people doing, and those kinds of things. So that was a little bit of the base of what we've done. Before we even started the year, you would have seen that there was a variance between the opening figures. So when we set the budget, obviously a best guesstimate of what's happened, and then, you know, you go through the annual financial reporting process, and that's actually what we have to put in there. So there was I call it a significant variance between those two figures. It was 693,227. Predominantly that was grants related, where we just received the funds later, and yeah, there's a whole range of things there. The other thing to be mindful of when we were doing this exercise as well is there is a number of grants, particularly the ESL ones. Again, their estimates are given, but when we get the confirmation of those, if one side of the grant goes up, so we're getting more money, we've got to spend more money. So obviously there's those variances there that occur. So there's a couple, there was a few changes to the WBN funding. So we had one project down, there was two projects that we got more funding for. You're already aware of Coates Road, I think went up to 950. So there's a few different variances that occurred in that area. Yeah, so that's kind of where we put it all together. Now, I know that this isn't probably what you're used to looking at, but if you've seen the annual financial report, which I know that you all have, that basically is like a More Stevens template or More Australia template. When we approached the consultant, because we did seek advice, so I've got a lot on my plate at the moment, about sort of what they recommended, and it was strongly recommended that we actually bring it into line with what the current standard is, because the template that was used previously was a wee bit outdated. You will find with the financial statements, especially when we change into new ERP, that's going to change too, so that it'll all be consistent, and it will actually make it easier on that side of things for you to follow even the annual financial report, because same spreadsheets that we're using the whole way through, so it's better for us to be able to track and keep the consistency there. So you have seen that has changed. Overall, you know, looking at everything that was in there and having those conversations with staff and providing all of the ins and outs of, we've got from here and we've had to put that there and those kinds of things. And yes, we've included some that were, you know, under the percentage and under the $20,000, just so you can see where money's coming from and going to for particular purposes. Yeah, so we've just gone through, and at the end of the day, we're still expecting that we're just going to have that zero. So there's no surplus, no deficit. It is actually going to come back into line. You'll see from the graphs that the revenue that we've expected, you see it's quite low at the moment. And I'm sure you would have picked that up in the monthly financials as well. It's looking pretty low. There is some grants that we have to have all of the information for and the acquittals done in April. So a lot of that funding that we're receiving, we're not actually anticipating getting that until probably May, by the time you do the acquittal process and take that through. Yeah, so there's been a few things, milestones and bits and pieces that we've just probably just been a bit late in actually getting it signed off before the first cut. So now we have the second cut. Does that kind of all?
Yeah. Thank you. You've actually answered a couple of my questions. So thank you. I didn't even have to ask them. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mincelli.
Sorry.
So ultimately, the bottom line will still stay the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Picked up on that.
One of my questions. Further questions, councillors? Oh, you got away with that easy.
I probably chatted too much.
Vote on it next week, but obviously a lot of work, so I've got to say well done to you and the team.
Thank you.
Yeah, since you came up, I'll thank you and not the executive.
We're just going over stuff. I've got to brief on it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll do a vote on that next week. So then we go to page 240. Can I have the move that we move behind closed doors, please? Oh, crikey. I think I saw Councillor Mincelli and Councillor Hughes first, so looking over there. So procedural side, can I please put that to the vote? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. So can we lock that door and we'll just direct, if you can go to the kitchen. If you need anyone before, you know the drill. We'll just go to part 2. So Councillor Bingham will just stay on here. There, 14.1. Page 4, sale of land for recovery of unpaid rates. I'll go through these one by one, see if you have any questions on this one. No questions on that one. Didn't write down the 14.2 application under CP, we're on page 9, CP.29 rates hardship. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, that was a $25 report.
That's great.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
How are you going to pay it off at that rate?
Actually, probably a good question to ask the officers. So with a proposed $25 per fortnight, Okay. So, back to no pressure. Thank you, everyone's in the room. So we have item number 15 on page 240. Item 15, motions which previous notice has been given is nil. Item 16, urgent business approved by decision is nil. Declaration of closure is made at 7:02 p.m. I'd like to thank councillors for the questions. There was quite a lot of questions regarding that particular item. I thank the officers for the reports and the question and answers. And we'll be back.